It was a quiet night in a small forest near the edge of a city. The sky was clear, full of stars. Birds were sleeping. Trees stood still. Everything felt peaceful. But suddenly, the sky broke open. A loud sound, like thunder, echoed through the trees. A bright blue light flashed in the sky. Something was falling fast, something not from Earth. It crashed deep inside the forest. Trees burned. The ground shook. Animals ran. The people nearby thought it was a meteor, but they were wrong. The next morning, the military arrived. Soldiers surrounded the crash site. Scientists and agents wore protective suits. They were afraid. Everyone expected a dangerous alien or a weapon. But what they found was a surprise. Inside the broken ship, in the middle of the smoke and metal, there was a girl, not a human girl. She had soft, glowing skin, almost like light. Her long, silver hair floated gently around her shoulders. Her eyes were closed. She was breathing, but very weak. She looked young, but her presence felt old, ancient. Like she carried something sacred inside her. They did not know what to do. The scientists scanned her body. No weapons, no virus, no danger. But still, she said nothing. She didn't move. She just sat, quiet and still. The soldiers gave her a name, the Virgin. Not because of anything romantic, but because of the stories. One old scientist whispered, "She's a Valari. I read about them in the old galactic files. Sacred beings, pure empaths, never touched, never claimed, never broken." The Valari were a mystery, a race believed to be long gone, soft-hearted, shy, and powerful. People said they could feel your soul. That's why no one dared to go near them. To touch one without permission was a serious crime in many star systems. And now, one of them was here. On Earth, they kept her in a clean, high-tech room. She still didn't speak. She didn't eat. No one could understand her. Scientists tried alien languages. Nothing worked. Some soldiers thought she was dangerous. Others said she was a gift. But the alien girl, the Valari, just sat in silence. Her eyes always looking down. Her hands folded on her lap. She looked lost. Then, one evening, something changed. A man entered her room. He was not a soldier, not a scientist. He wore a simple uniform. His name was Jace Carter. He was just a technician, someone who fixed lights and cleaned broken machines. He wasn't important. He walked into her room by accident. He was carrying a tray of food. When he saw her, he stopped. She looked so calm, yet so sad. Jace didn't try to talk. He didn't ask questions. He just placed the food down gently. Then, softly, he said, "I don't know if you're hungry, but maybe you are." He smiled, not a big smile, just a kind one. And then he turned to leave. But before he could go, something happened. The alien girl, the one who never moved, never reacted, slowly raised her head. Her eyes opened, and for the first time, she looked at someone. Her eyes were bright, deep, glowing like soft stars. She looked straight at Jace, not angry, not afraid, just curious. Jace froze. He didn't know what to do. He turned slowly and said, "Hey, ... You okay?" No answer. But she didn't look away. She was studying him, his face, his eyes, his heart. Then she did something strange. She touched her chest, very gently, then pointed at him, and she smiled. Not a full smile, but enough to change everything. The next day, the scientists noticed something new. The alien girl refused food from everyone, except Jace. She only responded to Jace's voice. If anyone else entered the room, she closed her eyes again. They tried everything, translators, machines, even telepaths. But the Valari girl had made her choice. She chose him. The room now had cameras. Everyone watched the screen. As Jace sat next to her, he didn't ask too much. He just talked about small things. The sky, music, cats, even pizza. And she listened. No one could explain it. Why him? He was no hero, no scientist. Just a kind, lonely man who treated her like a person, not a thing. And slowly, very slowly, the alien girl started to change. She looked less afraid. Her body stopped shaking. She even began to hum, a soft sound, like wind through the stars. And always, only when Jace was near. But not everyone was happy. Behind closed doors, secret agents were planning. "She's too powerful," they whispered. "What if she's tricking us? What if she's a weapon?" The Valari girl had made a silent choice. But Earth was not ready to accept it. Asterisk. The lights in the observation room flickered. 6 pairs of eyes stared at the screen. On it, they saw a man, Just a technician, sitting beside a girl who wasn't from Earth. She wasn't moving. Yet the air around her shimmered softly. Her silver hair glowed in the low light. And her eyes, calm but ancient, stayed locked on Jace. "She's watching him again," whispered one agent. "No, she's studying him," corrected another. Down the hall, behind glass walls and cameras, Jace Carter sat cross-legged on the floor. In front of him sat the girl everyone feared. But to him, she didn't feel like danger. She felt like silence. Like still water. Like something waiting to become real. He didn't speak today. He just offered her something small. A drawing, a rough sketch of a cat, drawn in pencil on a napkin. Alira tilted her head. Then, for the first time, she made a sound. It wasn't a word. Just a breath. A very soft laugh. Like the sound of wind chimes far away. Jace smiled. "You like cats?" Alira slowly nodded. It was the first clear answer she had given anyone. Back in the control room, chaos broke out. She responded, shouted a scientist. "She understands him. This is impossible." Another replied, "No, it's not impossible. It's selection. She chose him." 2 hours later, they tried something bold. They brought in a trained telepath to connect with Alira's mind. She did not allow it. They sent a female doctor in, with soft words and open hands. Alira turned her head away. They played music, showed her videos, even pictures of other Valari from ancient files. But she didn't care. She only reacted to Jace, and that made people nervous. That evening, Jace sat with her again. "I don't know why you chose me," he said. "I'm not smart. I'm not important. But I'm glad you did." She reached out slowly, like touching air. Her hand stopped just inches from his dot. Then, gently, her voice echoed, not from her mouth, but inside Jace's head. "Jace," he gasped. "Was that you?" Alira blinked once, then twice. Her voice came again, soft and echoing in his mind. "You are not afraid." That night, Jace couldn't sleep, not because he was scared, but because her voice, so calm, so heavy, with meaning, stayed in his thoughts. "You are not afraid." Was that why she chose him? But not everyone saw it as beautiful. A secret meeting was called. "We can't let a sacred Valari bond with a human," said General Moss. "It's already started," a scientist replied. "If she transfers her power to him, he'll become untouchable," said another. "Do you understand what that means?" They didn't want Jace to be special. They wanted control. The next morning, guards stopped Jace at the door. "You're not authorized anymore," said one. "Orders from above." He thought, "She trusts me. You can't do this." They pushed him back. Inside the room, Alira sat alone again, and she felt it. Her glow faded. Her eyes dimmed. Her heartbeat slowed. Outside, Jace sat against the wall. He felt hollow. But that night, something strange happened. Alarms went off. The walls of the facility began to hum. Lights cracked. Doors froze shut. Computers turned black. Everyone rushed to the control room. In the center screen, Alira was standing, for the first time. She wasn't sitting quietly. She wasn't weak. Her body was surrounded by a golden light. Her eyes were bright, not with anger, but with command. She raised her hand. The cameras in her room shattered. Then the doors opened on their own. Jace, still outside, saw the doors slide open. Alira stood in the center. She looked straight at him. And then, for the first time, she walked toward him, step by step, with grace and purpose. She stood in front of him, and finally, she touched his hand. Her voice entered his mind again. "You are my chosen." Everyone watched in silence. In that one moment, Jace wasn't a technician. He was something more, not because of power, not because of command, but because a sacred being with the power of stars trusted his heart. Somewhere deep in space, ancient satellites activated. A signal was sent. The Valari line has awakened. A new bond has formed. And far away, someone, or something, received it. A shadowy figure turned and whispered, "She has chosen the last virgin, has chosen a human. Prepare the hunters." It began with a ripple dot, not on Earth, but far beyond. On a planet made of fire and stone, orbiting 2 suns, a silent alarm echoed across the galaxy. It wasn't loud. It didn't make sound. But every ancient hunter felt it. A Valari had awakened. Back on Earth, Alira was no longer a quiet statue. She walked now. She moved with slow grace. Her silver hair glowing behind her like starlight. Her body still hummed with a soft light. But now it pulsed in rhythm with another dot, Jace. Dot, the bond was real. Dot. and everyone in the facility could feel it. Guards stepped back. When she passed, doctors lowered their eyes. Even the general, who had once called her just another alien, now looked at her with fear, not because she was violent, but because she wasn. Single quotes to doubt her silence was power. Her stillness was strength. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lift her hand. But when she stood beside Jace, people understood. She had chosen, and she could not be unchosen. That evening, Jace and Alira sat under the sky. It was the first time she had seen stars from Earth. I used to stare at these when I was a kid, Jace said. I thought, maybe someone out there was watching. Alira looked up, then whispered into his mind. We were. Jace turned. Your people. She nodded. We watched. We waited, but never touched. Why me? Because you didn't reach for me. You waited. But they were not alone under those stars. Far above, in the cold dark, a ship appeared. Old, rusted, silent. Inside were three beings. Not human, not Valari. They were hunters, armored in black stone, with faces hidden behind bone masks. Their job was simple. Track, capture, deliver. They spoke in no language, but they all understood. The command, bring the Virgin, alive. Back on Earth, signs of danger began to show. Animals in the forest moved strangely. Satellites picked up unknown signals. A storm formed above the facility, though no wind blew. Alira stood in the courtyard, eyes to the sky. Jace stepped beside her. Something's wrong. Alira didn't speak. She didn't need to. She raised her hand, fingers wide, and the air shimmered. A shape began to form, a symbol made of light, ancient and glowing. It floated above them like a shield. Then, she turned to him. They come. That night, the storm cracked open. Without sound, without thunder, the hunters arrived. They didn't land like a normal ship. They fell like spears of fire, directly into the earth. Surrounding the facility, soldiers opened fire. Bullets meant nothing. The hunters moved like shadows. Too fast to aim, too strong to stop. They weren't there to kill. They were there for her. Inside the building, alarms screamed. Lights failed. Jace grabbed Alira's hand. We have to go. She didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward. The ground lit beneath her feet. Her glow turned from gold to blue, sharp, bright, powerful. When the first hunter entered, Alira raised her palm. The walls behind him melted. The hunter paused. She wasn't just sacred anymore. She was dangerous. Jace stood frozen. He had never seen her like this. She looked like a goddess. Calm, focused, terrifying, and yet, still the same girl who had smiled. At his cat drawing, Alira turned to him. I will protect you. You don't have to. No, I choose to. The hunters advanced. One raised a blade made of red crystal. Before it could strike, Alira stepped forward. She didn't fight with fists. She didn't fire a weapon. She sang. A single note, high and pure, like crystal ringing. The hunter stopped, dropped its blade, and collapsed. The other two backed away. Even they, trained killers from across the stars, understood. This Valari was not untouched. She was awakened, but still, they did not run. Their leader activated a beacon. A cold voice echoed through space. Target has bonded. Calling in the collector. In the dark sky above Earth, something stirred. Larger than a city. Older than memory. The collector. Back on Earth, Jace and Alira escaped the ruined facility. They ran through the forest. Night cold and full of danger, but not fear. Because Jace was no longer just a technician. He was the chosen of the last Valari. And Alira, once silent and sacred, was ready to fight. The forest was silent, not peaceful, silent, like it was holding its breath. The trees stood still. The wind had stopped. Even the birds had gone quiet, hiding in the shadows. Jace and Alira sat near a small stream, the water moving softly over rocks. It was the first time in hours they had stopped running. Jace's shirt was torn. His hands were scraped. His chest rose and fell, slow and tired. Alira knelt beside him. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the dark. Her hands moved over his arm, not touching, just hovering. A soft blue light spread from her fingers. The wounds closed. The pain faded. But Jace barely noticed he was staring at her, not afraid, not confused, just in awe. You're not what I expected, he said softly. Alira looked at him, her eyes full of quiet stars. I was not made to be touched, she whispered into his mind. But I want to be real. Long ago, Her people had sworn never to bond. The Valari were sacred, untouchable, pure. They gave wisdom, they gave guidance, but they never allowed love. Love was messy, unpredictable, human, but now Alira sat in the dirt, healing a man who smelled like grease and sweat, and she felt safe beside him, not because he protected her, but because he never tried to own her. Jace leaned against a tree. He looked up through the branches, toward the stars. They'll come again, won't they? Alira nodded, double quotes, yes, they will not stop, and when they do, will you run again? She didn't answer right away. Then slowly, she shook her head. No, I will stand, because now, I have a reason. She turned to him. For a long time, neither spoke. Just the stream, just the soft glow of moonlight on her skin. Then Jace reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out something small, dirty, slightly torn. It was the cat sketch, the one she had smiled at. He held it out. Alira took it gently, holding it like it was something precious. And then, she did something no Valari had done in thousands of years. She laughed, soft, quiet, real, a sound full of emotion, not duty. It changed the night, suddenly. Alira's body shimmered, her eyes glowed brighter, symbols appeared on her skin, ancient markings, pulsing with blue light. She looked confused, surprised. Jace sat up. What's happening? Alira stared at her hands. The bond is responding. We are sinking. Like technology sinking. Like souls sinking. She turned to him. May I show you what I am? Jace nodded slowly, and then she touched him. Not a quick touch, but a full deep connection. Her hands, on both sides of his face, eyes locked into his. The moment her skin met his, the world vanished. Suddenly, Jace was not in the forest. He was in her memory. He stood on a glowing field of crystal grass. Above him, twin suns set behind silver mountains. Around him floated echoes of voices, songs, light, pain, beauty. Alira stood beside him, as she once was, among her people, before they were lost. He saw her loneliness, her pressure, her burden of being sacred, always watched, always protected, never loved. Never chosen by anyone, until now. And then the memory ended. They were back in the forest. JSE was crying. He didn't even know why. He just felt everything. She wiped a tear from his cheek, gently. I'm sorry, he said. You've been alone for so long. Alira smiled, a real human smile. Not anymore. But peace doesn't last. Above them, a shadow moved through the sky. Ship, silent, black. Watching the hunters weren't gone. And now, they knew. The bond was complete. Back in deep space. The collector watched from its throne of steel. One of the hunters knelt before it. The Valari has merged with the human. The collector's voice was like metal scraping stone. Then they are both property. Bring them alive. Back on Earth, Alira stood. The symbols on her body faded. But something new remained. Not just power, not just connection, but choice. She was no longer just a sacred symbol. She was a woman with her own will, and she had chosen to fight, not as Valari, but as herself. Once, there was a world where no one raised their voice. No war, no blood, no hunger. It was not heaven, it was Villa, a silver world floating between twin stars, where light touched every stone, and music lived in the air. The Valari walked barefoot, on crystal ground. They did not shout. They did not fight. They did not need to, because they felt each other's hearts. Not through words, through energy, through presence. If someone felt sorrow, others surrounded them in silence. If someone felt love, the entire room warmed. There was no lying, no hiding. Only truth. And truth, they believed, was sacred. But the galaxy is not kind to the quiet. The greedy came. The violent followed. They saw that Valari, not as people, but as objects. Living tools. Spiritual batteries. Something to sell. And so, the Valari were hunted. One by one, the lights of their cities went out. Not with fire, but with fear, in her memory. Alira stood on the final day. The skies were black. Her mother knelt before her. You will not fight, she said. You are sacred. You must remain pure. But I want to protect us, young Alira whispered. Purity is our shield. No, Alira had said, trembling. Purity is our prison. That was the last time she saw her people. They died believing. In silence, and she lived buried, locked in stasis. Sent across stars. Waiting. Until Earth. Until Jace now. She stood in a small cabin, hidden deep in the woods. Rain tapped softly on the roof. Jace sat nearby, building a fire with shaking hands. He didn't speak. He had seen her memory, all of it. Her pain, her past, her world burning without ever lifting a weapon. Alira stood by the window. Her glow was dim. Not from weakness, from choice. She was thinking, changing. I'm not sacred anymore. She said aloud, for the first time using her own voice, not telepathy. Jace looked up to me. He said softly, you never were. She turned. You don't believe in what I am. I believe in who you are. She stepped closer. I am the last. The only untouched Valari. The last virgin. You don't have to carry that name anymore, Jace said. But Alira shook her head. No, I will carry it. Not as shame, but as truth, as warning, as memory. She paused. And as weapon. Outside, something cracked in the sky. Not thunder, a ship. Larger than the last. Faster. The collector was coming. Back in orbit. The hunters prepared their final assault. They now understood. Alira was no longer sacred. She was something new. A vet who had broken the rules of her own race. Who had bonded, laughed, cried, and chosen love over silence. To them. She was dangerous. To the collector. She was priceless. Jace stood beside her at the window. You can't go alone, he said. Alira smiled faintly. I'm not alone anymore. Then she placed a hand on his chest. The bond activated. Symbols swirled around them, not just on her skin now, but his. Their connection was complete. One breath, two hearts, shared soul. Suddenly, the rain stopped. The air went still again. Looked up. They're here. But this time, she did not run. She stepped outside into the clearing. Hair glowing like fire in the wind. The ship hovered above, silent and monstrous. A voice echoed from it. Valari female, relinquish your bond. Submit peacefully. She closed her eyes, and whispered to the stars. I am the last virgin. But I am no longer untouched. She raised both hands. The air cracked with light. The trees bent back, and the stars themselves seemed to shimmer. Jace stood behind her, not as a protector, but as a partner, and together, they stood ready to face the galaxy. Not as warrior and weapon, not as sacred and servant, but as two souls that dared to choose each other. It should have been the end. The forest burned behind them. The sky was split by metal. And Jace Carter was falling. Not figuratively. Literally. The collector's beam had torn through the earth, lifting the air around them like a wave, and Jace was flung into the sky like a leaf in a storm. Alira saw it all, saw his body fly, saw his eyes still locked on hers. As gravity pulled him down, he didn't scream, but she heard it. Not with ears. With the bond. Time slowed. Wind stopped. The stars blinked once, and something inside her broke. Not fear. Not sorrow. Limit. She moved faster than human eyes could see. Not running, becoming. The symbols across her skin lit gold. Then white, then something new. A color that had no name. The kind of color only seen in dreams and sacred songs. Her feet left the ground. She rose. Higher. Faster. Brighter. Jace fell through cold air, helpless. But before the ground could meet him, she did, arms around him, energy holding them both. They didn't crash. They floated. Wrapped in light. Wrapped in something stronger than any shield. She landed gently, holding him like something precious. His chest was still. Too still. No, she whispered. Her fingers touched his temple. Don't leave. Inside her mind, the bond flared, not soft this time, but burning. She entered his soul, and for the first time, she gave him part of her. Not memory, not energy. But life. Jace gasped. His heart beat again. Eyes wide, breathing fast. He looked up at her, not afraid, not confused, just overwhelmed. You brought me back, he whispered. Alira nodded, tears streaming down her glowing face. I broke the law of my people. She smiled through the tears. And I would break it 1,000 times. Far above, the collector saw it all. Inside its cold metal halls, alarms rang. Impossible. Valari do not revive Valari. Do not transfer soul energy. But Alira was no longer Valari by law. She was Valari by blood. And human by heart. And that combination was unwritten. Unpredicted. Unstoppable. The collector deployed its final weapon. A construct called the mirror. A being designed to reflect the deepest fear of whoever looked at it. Even Alira. The ground shook as it landed tall. Silver shifting. When Alira faced it, it changed. It became her. But colder, empty eyes. Hollow. Voice. You are not sacred anymore, the mirror said. You are ruined. You are broken. You are not Valari. Alira stood tall, and for the first time, she spoke aloud. Not just to Jace, not just to the stars, but to the world. I was born sacred, but I choose to be real. She stepped forward. The mirror tried to stop her. Reflected fear. Reflected shame. Reflected her old self. But she did not flinch. Because now, she knew who she was. Not a ghost. Not a goddess. Not a prisoner of purity. But a woman. Who chose love over law. With one final breath, she raised her hand. Not in attack, but in acceptance. And the mirror shattered. Not with power, but with truth. The battle ended. The collector retreated. It didn't understand what had happened, because it didn't know that power is not control. Power is choice, and Alira had chosen later. In the still forest, Jace and Alira sat beside each other, hands intertwined. Her glow had softened now, no longer blinding, just warm. He turned to her. Are you okay? She smiled. I'm not sacred anymore. You never needed to be. They looked up at the stars, and this time, they didn't wonder who was watching, because they knew now, the galaxy was watching them. The galaxy did not explode. No ships fell from the sky. No cities burned. But something had still ended. Something old. Something sacred. In the quiet valley of Earth. Far from fire and machines. A girl once called the Virgin sat beneath a tree. Bare. Feet in the grass. Hair tangled with leaves. Power asleep inside. Her like a quiet star. And beside her, a man with rough hands and a healing scar over his cheek. Jace. He was holding a stone. Just a smooth, round one. He passed it to her. Alira smiled. No crown, no throne, just a stone. That's what freedom felt like. High above them, in orbit, thousands of voices argued. Screens showed the two of them together, hand in hand. Across alien empires and data halls, voices shouted. She broke the ancient laws. She gave power to a human. She chose a mortal over purity. What do we do with her? But the Valari elders were all gone. Their temples were ashes. Their codes were dust. And so, no one had an answer. Alira felt it all, not through screens, but through silence. When a galaxy is confused, it goes quiet. She looked at Jace. I think they expected me to die. He raised an eyebrow. That's one hell of a love story. Ending, she chuckled, her laughter soft, real. But I didn't, she said. I lived. I changed. And they don't know what to do with someone like you, he said. She nodded. Or someone like us. Just then, a light shimmered above the trees. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a ship. It was a being made of memory. The last ancient, Valari AI, still guarding the final law. It hovered before them, speaking not with voice, but with energy. You have broken what cannot be broken. Alira stood. I didn't break it, she said calmly. I chose differently. The AI glowed brighter. Your bond is not permitted. Alira smiled. Peaceful. Then I do not ask permission. The AI paused. This had never happened before. Never spoke like this. They bowed. They followed. But this one had felt pain. Had given life. Had loved. And in that moment, even the ancient code paused. Do you accept exile? The AI asked. From the stars. From your bloodline. From your name. Alira looked at Jack. Then she took his hand. No, I don't accept exile. I accept rebirth. The AI glowed once more. And disappeared. No sound. No answer. Just stillness. Which, to Alira, felt like respect. Elsewhere, far across the galaxy, screens shut off. The council chambers emptied. The bounty signals were deleted. No one said a word. But something had changed. A Valari had loved, had chosen freely. And she was not punished. In that silent surrender, a message was born. Sacred is not something you are. Sacred is something you give, when you love without chains. Later that night, Jace sat by the fire. Alira joined him, carrying a cup of tea she still hadn't learned to make well. He tasted it, smiled, and almost coughed. Still tastes like boiled dirt. He laughed. She laughed with him, then leaned on his shoulder. No star exploded that night, no ancient prophecy came true. But somewhere in a corner of the galaxy, a little girl with glowing hands and a curious heart looked at the stars and smiled, because she had heard the story. The one about the sacred girl who didn't wait to be chosen. The one who chose for herself. And she chose a human.